viewers, my name is Mrs. Jordan. I'm a subject advisor in the Buffalo City Metro District. Today's lesson is about text functions, and I'll be covering 6 subtopics back to back for your full understanding. Let's get started. A big part of processing and analyzing data is when we're busy with spreadsheet is to move, to join, and to extract data. Or any relevant data that you want to analyze. Now, Excel has been equipped with text functions to make this easier for us. We'll take a look at some of the useful text functions that grade 12s need to know, and this will include left, right, and mid, concatenate, value, len, and find. Left, right, and mid. These are the first 3 we're going to look at. And these functions allow the user to extract a specific part of the information that is contained in a cell. The left and right text functions consist of the following. So if we look there carefully, you'll see it says equals left A1, 3. And then there's a equals right, then the bracket A1, 3. So let's analyze this. An indication of that you're using a function is the fact that there's an equal sign. So we know it's a function because there's an equal sign, and then we put the function name, left or right, with the bracket, and then the cell that contains the data, and then the number of characters that we want to retrieve. So it's not necessary to specify the number of characters you want to return if you're using left and right. However, if you don't say, if I just go back there again, you'll see there it says left 3 in the middle of the page. If I leave that 3 out and I just say equals left A1, you're going to find it will automatically just get the first letter of that cell. So there I've got an example as well. For example, if the targeted cell contains the word hello, and you are using the formula equals left A1, you've left out the number of cells, it's just going to give you an H. We're going to look at practical examples now. I've typed the 5 functions that we will explore. To start off with, we're going to look at left, right, mid, upper and lower. These are very easy. So we're going to start off with left. That's the first one. So select and returns characters from a text string starting on the left. So if this is a text string, okay, a list of letters, it will start on the left. In the example below, we are extracting the first 3 letters of the name to create the title of each person. So you'll see if it's extracting the first 3, it's going to extract MR and the space. Okay, because remember the space is also a character. So if I do an example here, just to show you, we're going to type it out. We always start with an equals, left, we put our open bracket. We're going to do from where, there we can see the text and then the characters. So there I'm going to show how many, what cell, where is the text that I'm extracting from. So that's that cell, and then the number of characters, comma 3. So I'm extracting 3. Left B6, 3. If I enter, I should get misses. What happens if we don't put the number in? So I'm going to do an example below where I'm going equals, left, and of course if you get to this point, you can just double click down there and it'll be typed out for you to save time, and the bracket is in. So I'm taking B6 once again, but I'm forgetting to put in the number of letters. I'm just saying left B6, and we end up with just the letter M. So by default, if we don't indicate how many letters, it will only give us 1 digit, the first one in the string, okay, from the left-hand side. So if we move on to the next one, write. Okay, so write will start from the right-hand side. Okay, it selects and returns characters from a text string starting on the right. In the example below, we are extracting the last two letters of the name to create a code for each person. So if you look at this example, the surname is Barnard. The last two letters will be RD. This one is Pamisa. It's going to be SA, HA, etc. So we're going to do it here. Equals, write. And remember I said if it comes up, we don't need to type it out. We can just double click there. So write where of the same sex, B6, comma, and I want to take the last two digits. So I'm expecting to see Lu. If I enter, there we go. Once again, if I forgot to put in how many digits, and I go right, sorry, that was a mistake. And I'm going to open right, I'm going there, but I'm not putting in a number of digits. Then by default, it will just give me 1. Okay, just the U. Okay, so that is left and right. If we move to mid, the mid text function consists of the following. It's got the equals mid, then it's got a cell, it's got a number and a number. We need to know what these two numbers are. So an indication that you are using a function, that's the equal sign, shows us we're doing a function. The function name, which is mid. Then the cell that contains the data, okay, that part, that's still very much like left and right, the cell that contains the data. And then we're getting to two sets of numbers now. So the position of the first character you want to return. So if we go to 4, it means I want you to start on character number 4 and give me 3 characters from there onwards. So the number of characters that should be returned. So that is our mid. So unlike the left and the right functions, you always need to specify the position of the first character, as well as the number of characters that should be returned when using the mid function. If you do not do this, you'll receive an error notifying you that too few arguments were entered for the function. So we're going to do an example here. Let's say I'm going to go equals mid. Once again, I can just double click there to get the bracket, but it's so short anyways. So remember, the first thing we do is we put in the cell. Okay. Then we put in a comma, and we now decide on which digit do I want to start. So if I want to start on the 3rd digit, okay, that would be the S, because let's say I want SHO. I want those 3. So, or I want just SH. So I'm going to say start on letter number 3, but give me only 2 digits. So then I'm expecting SH. Start on letter number 3 and give me 2 digits. So it's going to give me 3 and 4. It includes the one that you're starting on. Okay, so I'm expecting to see SH. I close the brackets and I enter and I get SH. If I say I want 3 digits, start on 3 and continue with 3 digits, I'm going to get SHO. Okay, so we've got it. The first one tells us where to start, and it actually explains it to you there at the bottom. When you click on it, you can see start number and number of characters. Okay, so let's change it back to 2 digits. Here we go. If I pull it down, what am I expecting to see? I am going to start on letter number 3, which is an L in this case, and I'm going to get 2 digits, so it's going to be LE. Let's check. If I drag the function down, there's LE. So If you do not do this, we say there's going to be an error message. So let's in the LE forget to put the digits in. Let's say I forgot to put the digits in. Remember, with left and right, it will just give you one digit. But here, I'm getting an error message now that says you have entered too few arguments. So with mid, you've got to say where to start and how many digits. If we move on to mid, this selects a substring. Okay, so we're still on mid, sorry. This selects a substring from a string of text starting at a point that you specify. So it's just a summary here. If we look, for example, if we look at the surname Williams, the letters LLI can be selected using the function mid. And there is an example. There's Williams. If I start on the third digits, it's the L, and I'm taking 3, so it is LLI. Okay, so I think we've got mid. Let's move on to upper. Upper converts letters in a string to uppercase. Okay, in other words, if a word in cell A1 is typed in lowercase, in other words, small letters, the function will return, means it will give a text string, gives us text in capital letters. So if I take that word and I change it to upper, it will become Sam in capital letters. Same with lower. It converts letters in a string to lowercase. For example, if a word in cell A1 is typed in uppercase, this function will return the text in non-capital letters or lowercase or small letters. If it looked like that originally and I change it to lower, I'm going to get Sam that looks like that. We can test it here. Let's change that whole string to upper. If I go equals upper, I'm just double clicking there, and I click on the cell and I close the bracket. I'm expecting to get that whole surname Bishop now in uppercase. There we go. Now the first letter of the surname is typed in uppercase. If I now change that whole string to lowercase, I'm not going to have a capital letter for the first letter of the surname. So let's do it. Lower. I click on the cell. So now I'm expecting everything, including the capital B, to be in small letters. Okay, and if I drag it down, it will be the same there. We're going to look at concatenate next. So concatenate is a function that's very exciting because this allows us to add different cells together. So this function is, we use this to combine text data that is located in different cells into a single cell. An example is when looking at a spreadsheet that contains, say, the name in the one cell and the surname in the next cell, and you want to combine the two. So you can combine the name and the surname in order to display both in a single cell. This can save the user time and effort, and it allows him or her to work with one set of data instead of the name in the one cell and the surname in the next one, two sets of data. So the concatenate function consists of the following parts. It, firstly, like all other functions, it starts with the equal sign to tell us it's a function, and then the name of the function with a bracket, concatenate. The cell that contains the first piece of data that you want to combine, so that would be the first cell you want to add, and then the cell that contains the second piece of data. And you can have multiple cells added together like that. So take note that the concatenate function joins the data exactly as it is. Thus, the formula equals concatenate B2, A2, will combine the data located in these two cells without a space between them. So I'm saying B2 and A2. I'm not indicating any spaces, so it'll just combine the two. If you want to insert a space, you will have to add another argument as follows. So there's an example where I have in red, between B2 and A2, I've added B2, comma, quotation, space, quotation, comma, A2. So what I've got between those two quotation marks is a space. I've pressed the space bar. And the new argument consists of two double quotes with a space between them, and the space we insert, a space will now be inserted between these two words. So we're going to look at some more examples now of how we apply concatenate. Concatenate allows you to combine two or more text strings. So once again, we call this a text string. There's another text string. There's another text string. So it's a list of letters, text strings from different cells together in one cell. If you have a spreadsheet with columns for name, surname, and title, all three can be joined together in one cell. And there is an example where you've got John Smith, Mr., and it's Mr. John Smith. So you are concatenating, you are joining them together. So we're going to do an example here. I'm going to start off by typing equals, and it's a long word. So when you start typing it, there it shows you how to write it. You can just double click without typing it out and making a spelling mistake. So you want to concatenate, and let's say I want to concatenate the title, and then a comma, and then the name, and then a comma, and then the surname. That comma is called a list separator. Okay, so I've got the title, the name, and the surname in that order. If I enter, that is what I get. But it doesn't look very good because there are no spaces. So if I want to put spaces in, it would be better to have spaces between title, name, and surname. This is done by adding inverted commas with a space between. So there you can see with a space between. So I'm going to do that now, an example of that one. So it'll be equals concatenate. Once again, I'm not going to type it out. So this time I'm going to say Mr., which is cell C5, list separator, the comma. Then I'm going to put in quotations with a space in between, comma. Then I'm going to put in the name, comma. Once again, a space, so it's a quotation. I press my space bar and a quotation and a comma, my list separator, and then the surname. And I'm now expecting to have a space between two spaces added, one there and one there between the name and the surname. If you want to make that space bigger, you'll just press your space bar twice. Okay, so let's make that space a little bit bigger. Now I've got my space bar pressed twice in the quotation marks. So that's how we will add a space if we are concatenating. So we can also add text. Let's say we want to add text. Here you can see text not found in a cell somewhere on your page can also be added using concatenate. The text must just be like you did with spaces. Like we did with spaces, the text just has to be in inverted commas. So let's say I want to create an email address for Mr. Mfumana. And I can just, let's say there, I'm going to do the email address in that cell. I'm going to go equals, let's say it's a Gmail address. I'm going to go concatenate. Okay, I'm going to take his surname and I'm going to comma. And I'm going to combine it with at gmail.com, at gmail.com. So I'm expecting to get Mfumana at gmail.com. So when you want to add any text that does not appear on your screen, you will have to put it in inverted commas. Let's look at the end result. Infomana@gmail.com. Of course, we can also join text functions. So concatenate can also join various text functions. You can have rights, lefts, mids, etc. inside your concatenate. So there you can see a left inside. In the example below, we can create a log in by joining the first name with the first 6 digits of the ID number, for example. So there's a login name by taking John and then the ID, the first 6 examples. And then we can also add upper and lower. When you're using upper and lower, for example, there I've got upper in front of concatenate, and what we're expecting to do, although you can see in courses in uppercase, if I change it here, this example actually shows lower. If I go lower and I've concatenated things, it's now going to make that whole string in lowercase. So we'll do 2 examples of those, and then we'll compare it with the AND operator. So let's first complete the function, the concatenate function. The example I'm going to do now is where we add other functions, text functions, in a concatenate. So let's do an example as well, where we're going to go in this email address. Let's say we want to add the initial of the person before the AND. So I'm going to do it from scratch again. So I'm going to say equals. I want to take concatenate. So there we go. What do I want? I want the surname of the person, and then I want the initial, or not the initial, the first letter of the name, the initial of the person added to the surname. So I'm going to go left, because I want the left-hand side, so I'm adding left, open bracket. What do I want? That is the cell I'm referring to, the text I'm referring to. And how many digits do I want? I just want 1 digit, the first letter of the name. So I'm expecting to get Infomana, and then go to this cell and just get the B, Infomana B. Okay, and remember then if we want to add a string that doesn't appear on the screen, I have to put it in quotations, and let's say at gmail.com. And now close my brackets and enter, and there I've got infomana@gmail.com. Okay, so the next step now would be to say, no, I want all of this to appear in lowercase. So if I go here and I go add, and I say right in front, okay, everything that you see there must be in lowercase. I'm now going to add lower, and that whole string. And what's important here is if I've added lower with a bracket, remember I can't have that, lower concatenate or lower space concatenate. I've got to put a bracket after every function I've used. So there's lower with its bracket, and because I've added it in front, I have to close it. Always end on a black bracket. So now I'm expecting that whole surname or that whole email address to all be in lowercase. And there we go. infomana@gmail.com. Okay, so before we changed it, the M was a capital M and the B was a capital B. But because we've now put lower in front, everything has been converted to lowercase. The concatenate function is not the only way to join 2 pieces of data. And this can also be done by making use of the ampersand or the AND operator. For example, if you look at the formula there, that first bullet, I've got B2 and space and A2. It can be used to join the information contained within cell A2 with the information that is in cell B2. So instead of using concatenate, we're just using the and adding it that way. Note that we make use of double quotes to add a space between two pieces of information. And I want you to look there at the first example. There I've got in A2, I've got Carter. In B2, I've got Amanda. And on the top right-hand side, you can see I've got Amanda Carter. To get that right at the top of the screen, you'll see I've got equals B2 and a space and A2. So using the AND, there are two ways of using concatenate. The first we discussed that were, or combinations, as equals concatenate, and the second way is to use the AND sign that we've just spoken about. And there's a big example in the middle of your screen where you can see where we've taken Mr. John Smith, and in this case I've circled there where we are using the AND. So we will go Mr. and then we put the space in. Then we go to the cell where his name is A2, and then we put the and we put the space in. And I'm just going to do an example, then we add the surname. So let me just scroll back there, and I'm going to show you practically. So here, I'm typing equals. I'm clicking on David, and so let's just backspace here now. I want the Mr. first. So equals, I'm clicking on C4, which is Mr. And then I've got David, and then I'm clicking on B4, which is Adams, and I've got Mr. David Adams. But it doesn't look good, eh? Now I'm going to try it with a space. So Mr. and now in quotations, I put a space, then I put and again. Let's type out and, then I am putting in his name, Brendan, and quotations for the space, and I am putting in the surname. So 2 examples, so much easier actually than concatenate, and I'm going to try and zoom in here so that I can put the 2 next to each other and you can compare them. You'll see where concatenate we just put commas between, where with the and we're using the and. Okay, so the next function we're going to look at is len. So the len function allows the user to determine, this is a very easy one, we're going to end off with this one. The len function allows the user to determine the length or the number of characters of a text string. And a function can also be used to determine the length of numbers. It can be either words or numbers, but will not take the formatting into consideration. And I need to explain that to you. What are we talking about when we say the formatting? For example, if you have formatted the cell to display as currency, so if you've changed it so it shows as rand, it might show on the screen, but it's not really a text string, part of the text string. The len function will not count the R in that case as part of the string. And I'm going to show you a practical example. So just to analyze the len, we'll start off once again with the equal, which you know is telling me that I am busy with a function. Then the name, len with a bracket, and then the cell that contains the text that you want to determine the length of. And here we've got an example of Pamela. If you count the letters in the name Pamela, you will see there are 6 letters. And then I've got an ID there, and if you count those digits, you'll see there are 13 digits. So it can work with letters of the alphabet or with numbers. Okay, and we're going to do a practical example. So I'm starting off with school, doing the len of school. And there we go, it's cell A5. And if I count the characters, I see 6 characters. So there we go, I get 6. I'm going to do the same Let's just highlight there. I'm going to do the same with those 3 sets of hundreds. I'm working out len, and I typed that R in myself originally. So let's see, it sees it as 3. Although I see 4 things on the screen, but the computer is giving me 3. Okay, and there's a reason for it, because the computer sees the R as formatting. Okay, it converted it to formatting. So it is currency. But there's a problem. That one is only showing 100, but it's showing 6. It's because there are hidden digits. Okay, I've got decimals, which are not showing. I formatted so it won't show the decimals. And do you see it says 6? It's because of the full stop. Remember, the R is never counted if it's part of formatting, but the full stop is included, and that gives me 6 digits. Okay, if I change it to general, it's still 6 because there is no rand. We've come to the end of our lesson, and you can leave questions and comments. Don't forget to leave the name of your school so we can give shout outs, and please share, recommend, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you for watching, and see you at our next lesson. Goodbye.